Secretary in the Department of Education, Paul Sweeney. There was extensive consultation carried out, and there's been a report now, and it's with me, and there are a number of clear recommendations contained within that. And so that is a demonstration again of how we can seek to address workload-related issues to allow teachers to do what they want to do, which is to teach, but also recognising the important contribution that they play and the role that they have by resolving teachers' pay. So I would hope we would be able to have progress made when it comes to that particular report around teachers' workload, and I'll be able to update the House in due course in that respect.
Moving on to questions. The Minister of Finance, Timothy Gasson.
Question 1.
Mr.
Land Property Services has a robust processes and procedures in place for the collection and recovery of rates, and is committed to collecting all unpaid rates and takes proactive steps to do so. This includes ongoing billing, notifications, emails and text messages, direct contact with ratepayers via telephone calls, initiation of legal recovery actions, discussions and agreement on payment plans over extended periods. A failure to engage on the contact made by LPS and persistent non-payment will result in legal recovery actions. I can confirm that the outstanding balance of £5,018.82 remains payable for 9 to 11 Church Street, Ballymena. This is currently being pursued through ongoing rate collection processes. The payment of rates helps to fund the vital public services that our citizens and businesses rely on.
Much, Mr. Speaker, for that answer. And can I ask the Minister, based on that this premise has been used and funded by public money, at what stage will the names then be publicised as to who is responsible for that money to be paid in the name of Ballymena Advice Centre? I have many constituents up and down the length and breadth of North Antrim who are being hounded by LPS to pay their debts and their outstanding rate balance, where it appears that this special example and this special case has been given undue leeway, and I would urge the Minister to take every option and opportunity open to him to ensure that this money is recouped and those responsible, the names of those responsible, are publicised.
Minister.
This case is not being dealt with any differently than any other case in relation to outstanding monies owed to LPS, and I can assure the member that it has not been given special treatment. The naming of those responsible for payment of outstanding debts, etc., is something that we'll have to be very careful of in terms of legal requirements and legal protections and entitlements of all involved. But again, emphasise this case is not being dealt with any differently than any other case.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Minister. I think that it is disgraceful, while public services are stretched, that ratepayers are under so much strain. A rate bill on an office connected to a political party has gone unpaid for years. Does the Minister, or can the Minister outline, given that it is linked to a particular political party rather than naming the individuals, would the onus be then on the political party to pay that unpaid rates bill?
As I said, there may well be legal proceedings in this regard, so I am somewhat constrained in what I can say. My understanding is that this premises has been managed by a company. The individuals in that company may well be associated with a political party, but my understanding is that it's under the name of a company.
Question 2.
In the December monitoring round, as well as providing over £100 million in resource deal to help deliver pay awards for a number of groups of public sector workers, I secured executive agreement that £160 million be allocated for capital investment which will deliver real improvements in public services and infrastructure. In terms of this capital spend, over £59 million was provided to water service, road maintenance, safety improvements and rail projects. This capital investment will drive forward economic growth and enhance connectivity. Almost £30 million additional investment was provided for social housing. This, along with earlier funding allocations, will contribute to 1,750 new social homes being delivered, helping to address housing need locally. In terms of healthcare, an additional £25 million will be invested in IT and healthcare estate. £22 million was secured for investment in schools and education, including funding for Irish medium facilities, and a further £12.6 million was provided to DFE for investment in higher and further education. These capital allocations reflect our programme for government commitment to doing what matters most by investing in health, education, infrastructure and housing.
Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. Tell us what capital allocations were made to the Department for Infrastructure and how will that funding be utilised? The
Department for Infrastructure was allocated $59.8 million to deliver essential improvements to our roads, transport and water services. That includes $13.2 million for road maintenance, $5 million to deliver 8 new trains and track improvements, enhancing connectivity across the island of Ireland by improving the Belfast to Dublin enterprise service, and $38.1 million investment across a range of water, transport and roads capital projects. These allocations and previous funding allocations since autumn 2024 have contributed to the unlocking of wastewater capacity for over 5,000 properties across the north, supporting future housing and wider economic development.
Honourable McMurray.
Speaker, Minister, do you envision any further monitoring rounds taking place prior to the end of this financial year?
There is still one more fiscal event to take place in Westminster, supplementaries, which have to be concluded. I expect some funding from that, but I don't expect major investment coming this way.
Greg Hall.
Minister, do you have any concerns about the Communities Minister's social housing allocations? His department initially says the initial capital allocation of 168 million would build 1,000 social homes, and then he further went on to say that an extra 30 million from the December monitoring round would build 750 new homes. Obviously the calculations and the maths don't add up.
It will be up to the Communities Minister to be able to reassure you in terms of the calculations and figures on how they deliver the quantum of housing in each case. There may be different circumstances in terms of site ownership, what stage of development programmes are, etc. etc.
Just moving all day.
Thank the Minister for his answers thus far. Minister, whether it's Casement Park, the A5, the A1 junctions, the new children's and maternity hospitals, all islands rail upgrades, lack of investment in vital wastewater infrastructure, I could go on and on. Failure to plan and deliver investment has cost us dearly. When will the investment strategy finally be delivered?
The investment strategy is an executive document, and it will be up, I assume, for the Deputy First Minister to announce when it will be available. But I just want to correct some assumptions there from the member. There is progress in Casement Park. He'll have noted that himself, announcements from the GAA as well, and there is allocations from himself in terms of the draft budget for it and other sporting fixtures. I've just commented to my colleague Mr Sheehan that as a direct result of investment from the executive in a strategic way, we have fulfilled 5,000 new homes, water connections this year. So we are over since February 2024. So we are making a difference. We are making change. No one in this chamber, I believes that we have the sufficient funds at our hand to make the substantial difference we want. But we can take your attitude and say nothing's happening. Or those around the executive table can take the attitude of what can we do with what we have. And I believe we are maximising change with what we have.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, over the last week, you have been telling individual ministers to examine their budget and see what money can be saved. And in terms of the capital budget, I would like you to tell the House what you've been doing with particularly the Health Minister in relation to the sheer and unwanted wastage of money on capital projects. 10 million for an energy centre that not a brick has been built on. A maternity hospital that this March will be 2 years in handing over but still is not able to use. I think we need to take some action in relation to these kind of projects.
There appears to be a misunderstanding across the House on occasions that I have more power than I have, and I have suggested with some of your colleagues that if you want to give me more power, I will take it. Some of your ministerial colleagues might be too keen on the matter, but I can assure you I would use it wisely in terms of driving some of these issues forward. My comments are to all ministers in terms of ensuring that the limited resources we have are used in an effective and efficient way. We do have huge challenges in delivering capital projects. that is recognised across the executive, across the chamber. I don't have sole responsibility in improving those, but I do and will play my part as part of an executive team in improving capital delivery. But some of our challenges are not unique. When you look south of the border, you can see similar challenges there. When you look in England, Wales and Scotland, you see similar challenges there. So perhaps what we need to be looking at in terms of is lessening some of the bureaucracy we put in place around these matters without damaging accountability or environment or any of those things. But I do think we need to take an urgent review and look at the layers upon layers of bureaucracy we place around projects, and then we wonder why they're delayed.
Clark.
Question number 3. Departments have surrendered £280 million of capital in 25-26, excluding Irish Government and Treasury earmark funding, which was returned for reprofiling into future years. A total of £189 million of surrendered capital was available to the Executive for allocation in June and December monitoring rounds. This was allocated in full. The December monitoring allocations were entirely funded by capital reduced requirements, providing much needed capital funding across housing, health and education and infrastructure. This includes social housing, almost 30 million, health, just over 25 million, schools in the education sector, 22 million, further and higher education, 12 million, with funding of almost 60 million going towards water services, road maintenance, etc.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you, the Minister, for that answer. I suppose, Minister, the question to me, and you're giving advice to other ministers today, will you give similar advice to your own Minister for the FI in terms of the A5, or is it true that she held the money from July in terms of the court case and didn't ask for reallocation until December?
In fairness to all ministers, there wasn't any monitoring round until December, and ministers and departments will be aware of the schedule we have for monitoring rounds. And there were legal requirements and legal issues that the DFI minister had to examine before surrendering any monies. Quite complicated legal matters to examine before any monies were surrendered. But the message is clear to all ministers: if you are expecting or running into a short or a funding which you'll not be able to spend in a period of time, it should be alerted to my department immediately. And where there are substantial amounts of money come to our attention, we will and can rearrange monitoring rounds. But it's not always as simple as that. There's often complications in place. The quicker we get capital money out the door, the better it is and more wisely you can invest it.
Thank you, Minister, for his answers. How are the capital allocations supporting education?
Well, we've seen quite significant allocations into education over this period of time, and I think it's around 22 million, I had said in the main answer, in terms of investment within this year. And quite clearly the schools, the state needs significant investment, and I do all I can to support the Education Minister in doing that, along with my executive colleagues.
Owen Tennyson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for your answers. Minister, can I ask when specifically you were made aware of the underspend arising out of DFI, and do you agree that it's substandard that significant capital reallocations are being made in the absence of an overarching investment strategy?
There has been ongoing engagement between my department officials and DFI over several months, because obviously we were all aware that there was an issue with A5 as a result of a legal challenge. So I was aware of the potential surrendering of money. The exact amount of that money did not come through until a later stage as a result of the quite complicated processes that DFI had to go through in terms of finally establishing exactly how much money had to be delivered. In terms of the investment strategy, in terms of, I think it was his last comment in relation to those matters, that's an executive matter and probably best questioned to OFMDFA.
Matthew O'Toole.
Mr. Speaker. Minister, you are at pains to describe the December monitoring round as a document of profound strategy, ingenious interventions here, there and everywhere, as if it was planned. The truth is, Minister, 10% of the entire executive capital budget was underspent with 3 months left of the financial year. That is an extraordinary position for any executive and a finance minister to find themselves in. Can you give a guarantee that every penny of capital expenditure will be spent properly before the end of this financial year, 25-26?
I don't think I used any of the adjectives which the member attributed to me, but if he wants to call me a genius, feel free to do so. The issues around delivering capital our capital projects are well known, and there's a challenge for the entire House and the Executive in terms of if we continue to layer bureaucracy upon bureaucracy upon bureaucracy on top of capital projects, we should not be surprised when there are delays to them. So I think all of us collectively have to take a view of this in terms of what's the priority in terms of delivering the capital projects that make the positive change in people's lives should take priority over other things without putting at risk accountability or environment. So there's a challenge for us all. Can I guarantee you? I can guarantee you that the message has been received loud and clear beyond the executive colleagues that they need to ensure that they are monitoring capital projects very closely, and if there is going to be a slippage, that the money is returned to the centre as quickly as possible so it can be redistributed.
Jan Armstrong.
Question 4, please.
Sir.
Question 4. My officials have reviewed the Controller and Auditor General's findings of the 24-25 Department for the Economy annual reports and accounts and are pleased to note that DFI has made improvements on certain issues identified in the previous audit reports. I welcome the commitment DFI has made to continue implementing a series of target improvements to strengthen the 25-26 group accounts process. This is a highly complex group consolidation due to different accounting framework systems requiring reporting requirements and different year ends. I acknowledge the progress that has been made to date, and it is important to see continued progress. Due to the use of comparatives in annual reports and accounts, members would appreciate that the disclaimed option will take several years to unwind, and my officials will continue to support and assist DFE colleagues to achieve this goal as soon as possible. It is important to note that the issue highlighted by the Audit Office report do not call into question the approach of the Department or its arm's length bodies to the value for money, propriety or the management of this budget.
Ms Armstrong.
The Minister for his response, Minister, and I wanted to ask you, would you issue guidance, therefore, to other departments and agencies going forward that would prevent further disclaimed opinions being issued?
I will engage with my officials to establish as to whether further guidance is required or whether the guidance in place is sufficient to ensure that proper processes and outcomes are followed. As I said in my original answer, this was quite a unique case, a complex case, but I can reassure the member and other members of the House it's not a question that money has been lost to the public purse.
Just to add to that, the Minister, now you said there was no money lost to the public purse. Was there any overspend as a result of this?
No, this is an important accounting issue, but an accounting issue. There has been no money lost or an overspend as a result of this matter.
Speaker, and thank the Minister for his answers so far. Minister, in the Department for Economy Accounts there is financial assets of over £4 billion for student loans sitting on the balance sheet, and this is a highlighted item by the CNAG as an item which she has disclaimed, saying this valuation is out of date and unreliable. If that's proven to be so, whenever it is reassessed, there's potential for the write-down of that asset that could cost the Northern Ireland bloc hundreds of millions of pounds. Have you reviewed the detail of that, and how much risk are we at that we're going to take a huge hit here to Northern Ireland public finances?
All such matters, my officials engage with officials from all departments in relation to these matters, and we keep a watching brief on all these issues, and have to work our way through them. I'm satisfied that the processes are in place to monitor these situations, and that if there is further guidance or information required to be either to the Assembly or to the Executive colleagues, I will follow up on that, and as I have no doubt also will the Minister for the Economy.
Brett. Sure.
There is a long-standing commitment within the Fresh Start Agreement that the Executive could bid for a share of savings from actions carried out to reduce benefit fraud and error, where these savings could be verified by the Office of Budget Responsibility. On the basis of this commitment, my department provided the business case prepared by the Department of Communities to the Treasury, making the case for such savings. Treasury has indicated there are some issues in relation to the business case and that it wishes to explore in more detail. Once these issues are identified by Treasury, my officials will liaise with the Department for Communities to provide a response. As part of the autumn budget proposals, the British Government stated that it would work with the Executive over the coming months on ways to tackle welfare fraud and error, and on different funding options, including the potential to share a portion of resulting savings with the Executive.
Mr. Speaker, with that, Minister, could you outline why papers submitted by the Minister for Communities to the Executive to have discussions at the Executive on this important issue have not been approved by the First Minister for discussion?
The member will be aware that I cannot discuss executive business.
Donny Donnelly.
With the Speaker's permission, I will answer 6 and 10 together. As I set out in my statement to the Assembly in November, I am committed to delivering positive and progressive change to the rating system. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. I want to see extra help going to these businesses that provide employment support, vital employment supporting workers, families and communities. To give businesses and interested parties a final opportunity to express their views before I present proposals to my ministerial colleagues, I launched a consultation at the beginning of December on proposed changes to the Small Business Rate Relief Scheme. The consultation will close on the 29th of January with an aim of securing executive approval shortly thereafter. The draft budget proposals I have put forward include a proposal of £10 million be held centrally for 26-27 to provide support for small businesses. This would see an additional support provided through the Small Business Rate Relief Scheme, helping small businesses provide vital employment, supporting workers, families and communities. I want to make changes for April 2026. The timescales I am working to will allow that to happen. As members are aware, executive agreement will be required before any changes can be implemented.
Mr. Donnelly.
Speaker, and thanks to the Minister for that answer. The Minister has indicated that the DUP is blocking changes to the early payment discount and the maximum capital value, and has mentioned these changes would raise money to support small businesses here. What rationale, if any, have been offered for this position?
Well, as I said, I can't discuss executive business, but I will say this in terms of I like to think of this matter as still in discussion rather than blocked. And I think there is a potential landing zone for agreement on these matters. We do have to look at other ways of raising funds. Now, this is a relatively small amount, but I think if we were to carry out these proposals, redirect this funding in the direction I would like it to go, it will make a real positive difference to our small and medium enterprises.
Anya Murphy.
Can Collier and Minister, could you expand or detail on the proposals in the Small Business Rate Relief consultation paper?
The consultation paper puts forward a number of costed options that focus upon 2 main areas in the Small Business Rates Relief Scheme. The first is an uplift in the valuation threshold for the scheme, so that properties with a slightly higher valuation can be brought in within the scheme. The second area is to enhance the level of reductions provided by the scheme to provide a greater level of support for businesses.
Minister, have you engaged with the small business community on the newly planned reliefs, what it will mean for them?
Minister.
Yes, there was extensive engagement at official level with the small business sector before the proposals went out to consultation, and obviously their voices will be very important in the consultation responses.
All chambers.
Number 7, Mr. Speaker.
As I outlined in my main, The draft budget I have put forward provides almost £26 billion in resource DEL funding for the Department of Health over the 3-year budget period. Excluded earmarked amounts, this would mean that the health budget would receive over 52% of the available resource DEL funding each year. Given the priority placed on waiting lists in the programme for government, I am also proposing to extend the £165 million funding package available in the 25-26 budget for a further 3 years. This will see almost £500 million dedicated to cutting waiting lists. The funding ring-fence for waiting lists in 25-26 is already delivering results, as evidenced by the reduction in waiting times, and of course there's still more to do.
Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, I note that the Health Department has found substantial savings in their current budget. Does the Minister feel that other departments could be doing more in attempting to achieve similar outcomes going forward?
The level of cooperation and engagement between the Department of Health and my department has been an exemplar of how to do things.
Wigan.
I welcome the Minister's answer, and I welcome his prioritisation and the executive prioritisation of health. Can I ask, just given the fact that health service relies heavily on staff, if the Minister can give a commitment or ask that health workers will get their pay rise in a timely fashion?
I'll go into more details on these matters when I make the statement afterwards in relation to the draft budget, but I believe that it should be an opening item in terms of any minister preparing their budget, that staff pay awards are budgeted in at the start of the year rather than waiting on in-year funding, if any comes available.
Kate Nicholas not in her seat. I call on the own.
My department introduced a new requirement for changing places, toilets and local building regulations that came into effect on the 30th of June 2022. This was an important step for inclusion and equality. Increasing the number of changing places toilets will make our public places more accessible and have significant positive impact on the lives of disabled people, their carers and their families. At the time the department assessed there were around 42 changing places toilets and facilities locally. It was also estimated that the new requirement could lead to the installation of 12 additional changing place toilets each year, following after a transition period to allow projects to progress from design through to construction and completion. Since the amendment to the building regulations, there has been almost a 100% increase in provision, with 81 local changing place toilets now registered with the Changing Places Consortium, although we have no specific breakdown of how the changes to the building regulations has contributed to this.
Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for his answer. Indeed, this was a welcome step of progress, and the Minister himself has highlighted the positive step for inclusion and equality. In that context, Minister, can I ask you what engagement either yourself or your officials have had with the Department for Communities to look at how we can go further than that and ensure wider society is more accessible for those with a disability?
I don't have specific details with me in terms of what engagement there has been in recent times between my officials and the Department of Communities, but I'm happy to update the member on that, and if further discussions are required, I'm more than happy to task officials to do that.
Doug Biddy's not in his place. I call Aoife Finnegan.
Give me 1 second. Minister,
the question number, please.
Finance Minister update of the banking round
Just
table
request the number,
in
please.
December 25. Question 14.
Thank you. Thank the member. On 3rd December, I hosted a banking round table with representatives from the banking and finance industry, trade unions, business bodies, as well as consumers and community and voluntary sectors. This provided an important platform to discuss issues and developments most crucial to accessing cash and services here, including the new access to cash rules, banking hubs and digital and financial inclusion. I pressed the banking sector on the importance of maintaining the branch network, access to cash and essential banking services in our local communities, especially for our most vulnerable citizens who are in need of person-to-person services. I also stressed the banking needs of our small businesses, community and voluntary groups. In addition, the need to understand and accommodate the level of business and consumer transactions across the border with the south of Ireland and vice versa was highlighted.
Again.
And thank the Minister for his answer. What progress have you made on the issues identified at the 2024 Banking Roundtable?
Well, I think in terms of the engagement we've had has proven beneficial in terms of all the sectors in the banking sector and others in understanding the needs and the unique needs of this place. I do believe there has to be a greater understanding at Whitehall level in terms of this place, and I am pushing very, very strongly for better representation from this place on their various committees, etc. I also want to see a better understanding in terms of the cross-border element in this regard, and ensuring that when, for instance, Link are carrying out assessments of the needs of the community, that it is the needs of a cross-border community are better understood than perhaps they currently are.
Moving on to topical questions, Matthew O'Toole.
We're in the slightly absurd situation of having received belatedly a statement on the budget, but not being able to ask questions about it specifically until an embargo breaks. More to say about that very shortly. But, Minister, you're in the situation of having published a ghost budget last week, a ghost budget in the sense that it sets no real clear ambition consistent with the programme for government, nor is it yet agreed with your executive colleagues. I won't ask you to account for the behaviour of the DUP, but can you confirm what you will do if you cannot get a multi-year budget agreed in the executive?
I was hoping on clarity on what a ghost budget is. I simply do not understand the term or what it means. I know people who believe they've seen a ghost, but I've never met anybody who's seen an SDLP alternative to the budget. So I've never met a person who claims that. I have published a draft proposal which is now out to consultation, and in parallel with that I'll work with my executive colleagues on how we move forward in relation to obtaining a multi-year budget. That's my objective, and I think that should be the objective of all of us in this chamber. So we should work collectively. There will obviously be different disagreements and different emphasis on where things should land, etc. But I think we should all work collectively to deliver a multi-year budget.
Mr. O'Toole.
Can you confirm, Minister, on that basis that what is in that document, the allocations that you have said that you want to make, because you can't make them until there is executive agreement, that they have no standing until there is executive agreement? Is that the case? Because lots of organisations last week appeared to be under the impression that these allocations had been made, but they haven't yet. Can you be clear that unless and until this is agreed by the whole executive, those multi-year allocations do not stand?
I think the member underestimates the organisations and sectors and the public out there. I think they understand perfectly well what a draft budget is.
Peter McDonald.
Minister, how will Reform and Reinvestment Initiative borrowing be used throughout the multi-year budget period, or is this making up a capital shortfall, such as with Northern Ireland Water?
I suppose understandably we are straying into the next item of business, and it is a topical issue. However, the borrowing powers are there to be used to top up, particularly in terms. You would like to see them almost as an additional finances on top of what should be a proper allocation from Westminster in terms of capital. But we are using the maximum borrowing powers in terms of our capital to maximise delivery on the ground moving forward.
Mr. McReynolds.
Thank you, Minister, for your response. And Minister, what is your assessment of the impact a proposed capital multi-year budget will have on the progress of the infrastructure projects here?
Sir.
I think it's hugely significant, particularly in relation to capital. Members will be aware it takes a significant amount of time to plan and deliver capital, and the longer period of time you have to do it over, the better in terms of financial planning. So I think it's going to have a huge positive impact. And I suppose in terms of a multi-year budget is good at any time, but when you're facing the severe financial constraints we're facing, a multi-year budget actually allows you to manage that situation better.
On Burrows, not misplaced. I call on you, Murphy.
Collier, Minister, can you provide an update on the baby loss certificate scheme?
The Death, Stillbirths and Baby Loss Bill, which will enable my department to make regulations to form a baby loss certificate scheme, completed its final Assembly business on the 2nd of December, is now awaiting royal assent. It is important the detail of the scheme is shaped around the needs and expectations of families here. I'm extremely grateful to the over 1,000 people who took time to report to be published. Once the bill receives royal assent, I will bring forward the required regulations to specify the details of the scheme as soon as possible. Should the regulations pass smoothly through the Assembly, I hope that the scheme will be operational by the end of this financial year.
Ms Murphy.
Can Collier, and the Minister has answered my supplementary.
Michael McIntyre.
Does the Minister welcome the change to the farm inheritance tax that was announced pre-Christmas by the Irish Government?
Yes, I think this has been an important U-turn by the Chancellor and the Labour Government in this regard. It came about as extensive pressure from the farming community, from politicians across the chamber and in chambers elsewhere. It's unfortunate that I think, and rather than a regular series of U-turns, what we actually need is a new strategy from the Labour Government in terms of its economic and financial strategy, but I think this has been a welcome development.
Mr McAleer.
Thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, do you feel these proposals go far enough?
Minister.
I think there's obviously in any strategy or tax strategy, there's always going to be winners and losers. What we want to ensure for this area, this region, is that the vast majority, if not all, our family farms are protected. And I think in this instance, the changes will protect quite significantly the vast majority of our family farms here. Obviously, the farming sector will continue to engage with representatives here, and if there's further issues that arise, then I'm more than happy to make representations to the Treasury if required.
Okay.
Minister, can you provide an update on your approach to discussions with the UK Government on progressing a full fiscal framework for Northern Ireland?
Now that the autumn budget and all has passed, we've got the Christmas period over us, I have tasked my officials to engage with the Treasury about opening up discussions on a full fiscal framework. The member will be aware of the relatively successful engagement we had with the Treasury in relation to Holtham and other matters. I think it's now time that we now have as was committed to at that time, the opening up of full discussions in relation to the full fiscal framework.
Mrs. Guy.
Thank you, Minister, for the response. Can I ask you to confirm whether the recommendation in the Holtham review of 128% has been given consideration by the UK Government?
It has been given consideration by the Treasury and others. There is a number of ways of looking at this matter in terms of how you include agriculture in that equation, but the Treasury did commit to us at the time of our conclusion of that phase of discussions that Holtham would still remain on the table.
And odds.
In answer to my earlier question around capital projects, you indicated that one of the things that ministers and indeed the Department of Finance should be looking at is stripping back bureaucracy. In the context of that answer, can you explain to the House what you intend to do to strip back the bureaucracy in the procurement system?
This is actually an area where there has quite substantive work been carried out in this last year. It was first commissioned under my predecessor, and I have to say that the staff who work in the procurement section of my department have been very effective and efficient in producing new guidelines and documents, both in terms to the executive for approval, and we've seen a number of documents go through the executive for approval, the most recent in terms of being for the voluntary community sector, as well reducing bureaucracy in and around those matters. And it will continue to be reviewed and engaged on, but there has been significant progress in this matter.
Mrs. Dodds.
Thank you. Again, in the context of that, it would be helpful for those of us who are not on the Finance Committee but take an interest in these things if the Minister would lay a letter about that in the library so that the other members can see it. In terms of procurement as well, can you indicate whether any work has been done in relation to allowing small business to more readily access the procurement system?
Yes to both issues. I'm more than happy to lay a letter in the library, whatever the process may be in terms of informing members of the progress made. That includes progress in terms of supporting our small and medium enterprises accessing the procurement process for government and local government.
Donny Baker.
Minister, how will the proposals under the draft budget support Casement Park?
I'm committed to supporting sporting organisations across the board, and Casement Park being one of those. Considering the lengthy delays there has been to Casement Park, I think it's only right and proper that there is an inflation-based increase to the funding from the Executive to Casement Park that is proposed in the draft budget.
Mr Baker.
Thank you for your answer. Your proposals also suggest support for other stadia. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, in terms of the other stadia, so in keeping with the original agreement, my draft budget also keeps an inflationary uplift to the Department for Communities for the purpose of the Ophelia Stadium of 12.6 million and 21.5 million regarding Windsor Park as well. I've said it many times in this chamber and elsewhere, I think sport's a good thing, and supporting communities and supporting organisations to deliver sports in high class, proper facilities enhances not only the sport but the local community, and indeed is an enhancement to the local economy.
Jonathan Buckley.
Apologies, Mr Speaker, but I'll ask one anyway. The Finance Minister has been repeatedly talking about this draft budget being a transformation moment for public services. Can he demonstrate how that is enacted in the draft plan that he's proposed?
Fair play to the man for thinking on his feet. It's across a number of areas. I think in terms of the sporting question I've just answered to my colleague, but also in terms of the ring fencing or the further ring fencing of funding for tackling waiting lists. There's almost £500 million set aside in the budget for tackling waiting lists, because we have seen the success of that initiative in this 1 year, and I think it's only right and proper that we continued over the next 3 years.
Mr Buckley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Finance Minister will be aware that there is a low bandwidth of public confidence that this institution can spend public money wisely and therefore put aside the appropriate resource to develop core services which all of our constituents badly need. Therefore, will the Minister assure the House that line-by-line scrutiny of the budget will occur to ensure that we root out waste, root and branch across departments?
Minister. It would be my view that before any minister made a bid to the budget process, and all departments have made bids to the budget process, that each minister and their accounting officer should have had a line-by-line review of their budget. And indeed, I would go further. Every minister and their accounting officer should have regular engagement about their budget and go through it to satisfy themselves that what they're spending their monies on, or the public monies on, is effective and efficient and delivering the results that they want.
Thank you. Ms Ennis isn't in her place, so that brings to a conclusion questions to the Minister of Finance. If members will take their ease whilst we change the table before we move to the next item of business. Point of order, Mr O'Toole.
Mr Speaker, by my count, according to my computer, I received the ministerial statement on the draft budget at 3 minutes past 3. Standing Order 18A is clear that members are supposed to receive written statements at least 30 minutes before ministers give them.